The movie opens in one of the most confusing ways possible. A man wakes up alone on a spaceship, has no idea where he is, and can barely remember his own life. The man's name is Ryland Grace, and he wakes up aboard a spacecraft called the Hail Mary. He's been in a medically induced coma for 2 years, and the effects are obvious right away. He's disoriented, weak, and struggling to understand even the most basic things around him. To make matters worse, he's floating in zero gravity, which is not exactly the easiest way to start your day. The ship's onboard computer, called Mary, responds to his questions, but it doesn't give him the comfort he's hoping for. Grace stumbles out of his room and starts exploring the ship. At first, he finds 2 other crew members in their pods, and for a brief moment, it seems like he's not alone. But that hope disappears almost immediately. Both of his crewmates died while he was still unconscious.
It's a quiet but powerful moment. Grace doesn't fully understand what's happening yet, but he knows one thing for certain. Whatever mission this is, he is now the only one left to complete it. As he continues searching the ship, he learns that the Hail Mary is nowhere near Earth. He checks the records and discovers they departed 2 years earlier. Naturally, his first instinct is to turn the ship around and go home. I think most people would have the exact same reaction. But Mary refuses. The computer explains that returning to Earth is not an option until the mission is finished. That's when Grace realizes he isn't just lost in space. He's in the middle of something incredibly important. He can't even remember what it is. Over time, his memories begin to return in fragments. Before all of this, Grace was a middle school science teacher. He'd once been a respected scientist, but by the time you meet him in his old life, he's teaching children and explaining complicated topics in a way they can actually understand. During one class, a student asks a question that sounds almost impossible. Is the sun dying?
Grace explains that scientists have discovered strange energy patterns around Venus known as Petrova lines. These lines are connected to an unusual microorganism that somehow travels to the sun and feeds on its energy. As this organism multiplies, the sun's brightness slowly decreases. That means Earth is receiving less heat, and according to scientists, within about 30 years, the planet will become so cold that a global ice age could wipe out millions of people. The students are understandably terrified. Grace does his best to calm them down. He tells them that the smartest scientists in the world are working on the problem and that humanity still has a chance. It's a simple scene, but it tells us a lot about him. Grace is the kind of person who makes impossible things feel understandable. That turns out to be exactly what the world needs. One day after class, Grace is visited by a woman named Eva Straub, a highly respected scientist and government leader overseeing the global response to the crisis. She knows everything about it.
Years earlier, Grace published a controversial paper suggesting that life might exist without water. The scientific community dismissed the idea and mocked him so thoroughly that he left research altogether and became a teacher. Strat tells him that his theory may have been right all along. She takes him to a secure laboratory and presents him with a mysterious sample. Grace examines it and immediately suspects that it may be alive. Over the next several days, he runs a series of experiments, exposing the sample to different conditions and observing how it reacts. What he discovers is astonishing. The organism is not from Earth. It is an alien life, and even more importantly, it is the same organism responsible for draining energy from the sun. The organism is named astrophage. This is where things start to get really interesting. Astrophage stores enormous amounts of energy, far more efficiently than any fuel humans have ever created. It can absorb and release power on a scale that makes interstellar travel possible. So while astrophage is threatening Earth, it may also be the only reason humanity can fight back.
Grace joins a massive international research effort to study the organism and produce it in large quantities. Scientists from around the world work together with a single goal: save the planet before time runs out. Eventually, they uncover one crucial clue. The sun is not the only star affected by astrophage. Many stars are dim, but one star system appears untouched: Tau Ceti. If scientists can travel there and discover why that system is immune, they may be able to send the answer back to Earth and stop the catastrophe. That mission becomes known as Project Hail Mary. The plan is as bold as it is terrifying. A crew will travel to Tau Ceti using astrophage as fuel. The journey will take years, and because of fuel limitations, there will not be enough to make a round trip. In other words, the astronauts are expected to go knowing they may never come home. Still, if they can find the answer and send it back to Earth, humanity will survive. That alone makes the sacrifice worth it. 3 scientists are chosen for the mission.
Back in the present, Grace's memories continue returning, piece by piece. As he learns more about what happened, he begins taking better care of the ship and of himself. He also takes time to honor his fallen crewmates. One of them is Yao Li-che,
a colleague he knew personally. Grace carefully prepares both bodies and releases them into space with dignity and respect. It's a surprisingly emotional moment. Even though he's surrounded by advanced technology, this scene feels very human. Now completely alone, Grace settles into a routine. He conducts experiments, monitors the ship, and slowly becomes more comfortable with life in deep space. Months pass. Then, one day, everything changes. Mary alerts him that an unknown object has entered the area. Grace looks outside and sees another spacecraft. That alone is shocking enough, but then a small object is launched from the alien ship toward the Hail Mary. Grace braces for the worst, expecting some kind of attack. Instead, the object attaches harmlessly to his ship. When he retrieves it, he discovers a strange device containing what appears to be a map or set of coordinates. After studying it, Grace understands that the visitors are sharing information about their homeworld,
a planet called Erin. In return, Grace sends the location of Earth. The next day, the alien ship extends long crystalline structures that connect directly to the Hail Mary. Together, they form a tunnel between the two vessels. To be honest, this is the kind of moment where most people would seriously reconsider their life choices. Grace is terrified, but curiosity wins. Wearing his spacesuit, he enters the crystal tunnel and makes his way into the alien ship. And there, face to face, he meets another intelligent being. The creature is unlike anything he has ever seen. Its body looks rocky and insect, roughly the size of a dog. Both of them freeze for a moment, staring at each other in disbelief. Two beings from completely different worlds, each traveling across space to save their own species, have just made first contact, and this unexpected meeting is about to become the most important relationship in Grace's life. The first meeting between Grace and the alien is understandably awkward. Neither of them knows what the other is saying, and neither wants to make the wrong move. Grace, trying to show that he means no harm, starts using simple gestures and movements. At one point, he even does a little dance, and to his surprise, the alien imitates him. It's a funny moment, but it also says a lot. Even with no common language, both of them are clearly trying to communicate. Grace returns to the Hail Mary and, with help from the ship's computer, begins working on a translation system. It takes time, but eventually he creates a device that can interpret the aliens' musical sounds and convert them into words. For the first time, they can actually talk. Grace decides to call the alien Rocky, a fitting name considering his body looks like it's made of stone. Rocky doesn't seem to mind, and from that point on, their conversations become the heart of the story. Once communication is possible, the two quickly realize something incredible. They are both here for the exact same reason. Rocky species discovered astrophage threatening their own star, just as humans did. His people also built a spacecraft and sent a crew across the galaxy to find a solution. Grace learns that Rocky was not alone when he began his journey. There were 23 members on his mission, but every one of them died before reaching Tau Ceti. Grace shares that he originally had 2 crewmates, and they died as well. In a strange and very touching way, they instantly understand each other better than anyone else could. Both are the last survivors of impossible missions. Both are carrying the hopes of their entire worlds, and both are desperately trying not to fail. That shared burden turns into genuine friendship. Grace improves the translation system by building Rocky a portable voice device. They test several voice settings before settling on a simple male voice. It's a small detail, but it makes Rocky feel even more like a real character rather than just an alien. The movie then returns to Grace's memories on Earth. At the Project Hail Mary facility, scientists are working non-stop to produce astrophage and prepare the mission. Grace becomes deeply involved in the technical side of the project. He helps design systems, trains other scientists, and explains how the spacecraft will collect resources from planets during the journey. He also stresses how dangerous astrophage can be. It stores incredible amounts of energy, and if mishandled, it can become extremely destructive. During this period, Grace spends time with Yao Lijie, one of the astronauts selected for the mission. Grace asks him why he is willing to risk everything. Yao answers with remarkable simplicity. If giving his life can save Earth, then it is a small sacrifice. It's one of those lines that stays with you because it captures the mindset of everyone involved. They know the odds, and they choose to go anyway. Back in the present, Grace now understands his mission complete, but life aboard the Hail Mary feels very different than before. He's no longer alone. Rocky begins visiting Grace's ship regularly. Because Rocky's species can't survive in oxygen, he protects himself inside a specially designed crystal enclosure. Even while dealing with serious scientific problems, the two settle into a surprisingly normal friendship. At one point, Rocky comments that Grace keeps his living space messy. Honestly, if an alien visited my house and immediately criticized my cleaning habits, I'd probably start tidying up too. Grace begins documenting
everything he learns about Rocky's biology, culture, and behavior. But over time, these observations become less about research and more about getting to know a friend. For the first time since waking up, Grace feels really comfortable. One day while Grace is eating, Rocky demonstrates how his own speaks. The process looks very strange from a human perspective, and Grace is both disgusted and fascinated. Their conversations become increasingly personal. Rocky explains that he was a mechanical engineer on his ship. He also suggests that once their mission is complete, they should travel together and then return to the homeworld. Grace agrees without hesitation.
Over the next 11 days, their bond grows even stronger. Rocky shows Grace detailed projections of places on his homeworld. Grace learns about Iridian culture, and the two spend long hours talking about science, family, and life. Rocky reveals that he has a wife, and that they have been together for 183 years. Even after all that time, Rocky says it still feels too short. That's actually a very sweet moment, and it tells us a lot about his character. Eventually, Rocky asks Grace about his own romantic life. Grace admits he once had a girlfriend, but his obsession with work drove them apart. She later left him for another man named Mark. Rocky immediately says that he does not like Mark. It's such a simple response, but it means a lot to Grace. Sometimes the best thing a friend can say is just, yeah, that guy sucks. At last, they reach Tau Ceti and begin the most important part of their mission. Their goal is to find out why this star system remains unaffected by asteroids. They collect samples and study the strange organisms present there. Grace discovers that one of these life forms is a microorganism capable of consuming astrophage. This is the breakthrough they have been searching for. If they can send this life-saving organism back to Earth, scientists may be able to stop the sun from dimming and save the planet. For the first time, success feels real, but there is still a major problem. They need a large quantity of the organism, and the only place to collect it is near a highly dangerous planet in the Tau Ceti system. Grace then reveals something he had not fully explained before. His original plan was never to return to Earth. The Hail Mary did not have enough fuel for a safe trip home. He intended to send the life-saving organism back to Earth in a small probe and die in space after completing the mission. Rocky is deeply upset. He had assumed they would both survive. When Grace calmly accepts his fate, Rocky refuses to do the same. Grace tells him that meeting Rocky was one of the best things that ever happened to him. Considering how lonely and uncertain his life had become, it's an incredibly honest and emotional moment. Rocky responds in the most loyal way possible. He offers Grace a massive amount of astrophage fuel from his own ship. This gift will allow Grace to return home safely, but it comes at a cost. Rocky's own journey back to Arid will be delayed by 6 additional years. He doesn't hesitate. He simply refuses to let his friend die. Grace is overwhelmed and hugs him. It's hard not to be moved here. Underneath all the science and space travel, this is really a story about friendship. Soon after, Grace remembers one of the most painful moments from Earth. As Project Hail Mary nears completion, a catastrophic explosion destroys part of the laboratory and kills the astronauts originally intended for the mission. Years of preparation are suddenly thrown into chaos. Back in the present, Grace and Rocky set out to gather the life-saving organism from the dangerous planet near Tau Ceti. The mission is extremely risky.
Powerful gravity and harsh conditions begin damaging the ship almost immediately. Grace leaves the safety of the spacecraft, collects the samples, and struggles to return while injured and exhausted. He barely makes it. As they attempt to escape, one of the engines catches fire under the intense acceleration. A violent explosion rocks the ship. Grace is thrown unconscious. Without hesitation, Rocky does something incredibly brave. Even though oxygen is poisonous to him, he leaves the safety of his protective enclosure, enters Grace's ship, activates the autopilot, and places Grace into a medical coma so the Hail Mary can treat his injuries. He risks his own life to save his friend. The story then returns to the final days before launch. With the original crew dead, world leaders are desperate for a replacement. Grace is the obvious choice. He understands the science better than almost anyone, but Grace refuses. He insists that he is a teacher, not an astronaut, and he is terrified of dying alone in space. Eva Stratt tells him that humanity has no better option. Even then, Grace cannot bring himself to volunteer.
In the end, he is forced aboard the Hail Mary and placed into a coma for the journey. This revelation changes how we see him. Grace did not leave Earth as a willing hero. He left as a frightened man who wanted to stay behind. But somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, he became exactly the person the mission needed. Back in the present, Grace slowly regains consciousness inside the Hail Mary's medical system. His body is badly injured, but he is alive. As he begins to recover, he notices small particles falling from Rocky's body. At first, Grace believes the worst. After everything Rocky did to save him,
it seems that his friend may have died. The thought hits him hard. By this point, Rocky is no longer just an alien collaborator. He is Grace's closest friend, the one being in the universe who truly understands what he has gone through. Still grieving, Grace turns his attention to the samples they risked their lives to collect. He studies the new organism more carefully and makes a crucial discovery. The creature feeds on astrophage, reproducing as it consumes it. In other words, it is a natural predator.
Grace names it Predator, and just like that, the entire mystery of Tau Ceti makes sense. This organism keeps astrophage under control, preventing it from draining the system's star. That is why Tau Ceti remained unaffected, while so many other stars, including the sun, continue to dim. Grace finally has the answer that can save Earth. Standing beside what he believes is Rocky's lifeless body, Grace makes a quiet promise. He will save both of their worlds. He begins preparing large quantities of Predator and packages them for delivery. Some are intended for Earth, and others for Rocky's homeworld, Arid. But there is one obvious problem. Grace has no idea how to navigate Arid on his own. To solve this, he starts exploring Rocky's ship, hoping to find the information he needs. Then, in one of the most emotional moments in the story, Grace falls asleep near Rocky and is suddenly startled awake. Rocky is alive. He survived. The relief on Grace's face says everything. He immediately embraces his friend, overwhelmed with happiness. After spending so much time believing he had lost him, getting Rocky back feels almost too good to be true.
Grace explains how Predator works, and both of them realize that their mission has succeeded. After years of sacrifice, loss, and uncertainty, they finally have a real solution. For the first time, they allow themselves to celebrate. A few days later, Grace visits Rocky's ship more thoroughly. He is amazed to see that the structure is built almost entirely from crystal, perfectly suited to Rocky's species and environment. Grace and Rocky prepare to part way. The solution is ready, and each of them must return to save their own world. Neither wants to say goodbye. Their friendship has become so deep that they call each other brother. It's a simple word, but after everything they've endured together, it feels completely earned. They share a heartfelt farewell and set course for their separate homes. 11 months later, Grace is on his way back to Earth when he discovers a serious problem. Some of the Predator samples were stored too close to his astrophage fuel. As a result, organisms have begun consuming the very fuel powering the Hail Mary. Grace acts quickly, repackaging the samples and saving the mission. He also records detailed video logs explaining everything Earth needs to know about astrophage, Predator, and the journey.
Then a troubling realization hits him. It happened on his ship. The same thing is likely happening to Rocky. And if Rocky doesn't fix the problem soon, he may never make it home. Grace is faced with an impossible choice. He can continue to Earth and finally return to the world he left behind, or he can turn around and rescue his friend, knowing he will almost certainly never see Earth again. By this point, the decision is obvious. Grace launches the Predator samples toward Earth in small autonomous probes, ensuring that humanity still receives the cure. Then he changes course and heads for Arid. It's a beautiful moment, because it shows how much he has changed. The man who once tried to escape the mission now willingly gives up his chance to go home in order to save a friend. Sometime later, Grace reaches Rocky's ship. He enters the crystal tunnel and calls out to him. Rocky appears, and the two reunite with pure joy. There's no dramatic speech, no complicated explanation. They are simply happy to see each other again. And honestly, after everything they've been through, it's one of the most satisfying reunions imaginable. Years pass. On Earth, 27 years have gone by. Eva Strat is now elderly, and the planet has already begun experiencing the devastating effects of a global ice age. The sun has weakened and conditions are harsh, but hope finally arrived. The probe sent by Grace reach Earth carrying Predator samples and his recorded messages. Eva learns what happened, hears Grace's explanation, and discovers the remarkable story of Rocky. Using Predator, scientists begin eliminating astrophage and restoring the sun. Humanity is safe. Meanwhile, Grace has built a new life on Arid. Rocky creates a carefully controlled environment where Grace can live comfortably. It is designed to feel as close to Earth as possible. A thoughtful gift from a friend who never forgot what Grace sacrificed. Rocky even keeps the Hail Mary ready in case Grace ever decides to return to Earth. Grace says he will think about it, but in his actions, the answer was already clear.
Rather than going back, Grace chooses to stay. He returns to what he has always done best. He becomes a teacher. In one of the film's most fitting endings, Grace is shown teaching the children of Rocky's species. He explains science, answers their questions, and once again helps young minds understand the universe. After traveling across the stars, facing extinction, and forming an unlikely friendship with an alien engineer, Grace ends up exactly where he belongs. Not as a famous scientist, not as a celebrated astronaut, but as a teacher. And honestly, that ending feels perfect. Project Hail Mary is a story filled with big scientific ideas, but what makes it memorable is how personal it feels. At its core, it's about friendship, sacrifice, and the unexpected ways people can grow when they are needed most. It manages to be exciting, emotional, and surprisingly funny, and by the end, it leaves you with a genuine sense of hope.